Aloha, it's Dave Lawrence. How are you? Big mahalo for tuning in. Today we have a very special guest on the line. He is coming to play this weekend. He's no stranger to gigging in Hawaii either. In fact, according to the research I've been doing, and let's hope it's correct, he has been playing in the islands for nearly 40 years in one way or another. Maybe you saw him all those years ago with our friend Chris Christopherson and Rita Coolidge. Maybe you've seen him as keyboardist and musical director of Jimmy Buffett's Carl Reefer Band, of which, according to what I've dug up, he's the longest active member. He started working with Jimmy Buffett in 1973. He's been with him virtually ever since, produced at least 10 of his albums, been a regular component of his band. Joins him this weekend, obviously, for his shows, Friday at the Max, Sunday at the Waikiki Shell. We'll hear about his epic resume, hopefully, too, if we can jam some of that in, recording with acts like Aretha Franklin, Dwayne Allman, Buddy Guy, Jackson Brown, Roy Orbison. Tantalizing stuff for sure. It's a pleasure to welcome the longtime keyboardist and musical director of Jimmy Buffett's Carl Reefer Band, Michael Utley. Michael, aloha and mahalo, my brother. Thank you for taking a moment.
Aloha, Dave. Aloha.
Good.
How are you?
I am good. Good. Thank you so much. How about yourself?
I'm doing excellent. Looking forward to the shows this weekend.
Well, as you can tell, so are we. And a lot of people, you've developed quite a connection to the islands over a bunch of time. So let me just make sure I'm right, because you never know. But Steve, the loyal listener, he says your first gig here was, it may have been, June 9th, 1973, back in Chris and Rita. Sound right?
Yes, we stayed at the Ilikai. I don't know if that hotel's still there, but I remember that I think that was my first trip to Hawaii.
Love it.
I'm fairly sure it was, yeah. So it was a big moment.
Are you impressed by our homework so far? How are we doing so far?
Yes. When you were reading all those things, you did do your homework.
As David Lee Roth likes to say on the current Van Halen reunion tour about halfway through the first song, how are we doing so far?
Yeah. Well, you're doing great.
Appreciate that. So yeah, I love being able to go back that far. And Chris was a guest last year, right around this time. I'm thinking might have been a little later in the year, doing a benefit concert because he's got such a big heart over there on Maui, where he calls his home.
Right.
What are your memories of that show, if you can conjure up anything now that we're talking about?
Well, I don't remember the show as well as being backstage. A friend of ours, I remember Jesse Ed Davis had just moved over to Oahu, and he was at the show backstage. And I'd worked for Jesse on a Gene Clark. I'd worked with Jesse when we were in a group called the Dixie Flyers down in Miami. We're a house rhythm section for Atlantic Records. You mentioned Aretha Franklin. That's and Buddy Guy. That was all done with we were the house rhythm section. We backed those acts, and we did a thing on Six Sides on Taj Mahal, and Jesse was in Taj's band at the time. And then when I moved to Los Angeles, he was producing Gene Clark of the Byrds, and I played on that album. So. I remember backstage more than I do the performance itself. But we had a great time. Chris, and he had some old Army buddies. He was a helicopter pilot, and we went out fishing. I mean, it was like a vacation, is what it was. And when you come to Hawaii, you need to enjoy it. You don't. It's not like going. The nuts and bolts of touring. It's really it's a vacation plus work.
That's cool to see your memories of hanging with Chris and his buddies being around and stuff.
Well, he seemed really glad to see these guys, because he hadn't seen them in a while. And this is before he moved to Hana. This is when he was just, at that time, I don't know where he was. He was, he didn't have what would be called a permanent residence. He was just he and Rita were together, and in '73, June of '73, he might have. I don't know if they had bought their house yet in Malibu or not, but anyway, he seemed to really enjoy himself being in Hawaii.
And you came back. It wasn't that much longer from there. Again, there could be some gaps in this, and my apologies in advance if I don't have all the chronology right. But the next gig I have would be September 30th, and noteworthy, too, of 1979, Aloha Stadium, which not a whole lot of concerts have happened in. And you guys were opening for the Eagles. That could have been your first gig with Buffett here.
Well, yeah, I think it was. And that's true. And he had opened up in the States. We'd done about 10 gigs. We did Binghamton, New York. I remember that. Montreal, we did with those guys. Ended up in Cleveland. But it was great working with them. I mean, they were the biggest then, So it was a real thrill.
What a cool gig to play. You have any memory of standing there on Aloha Stadium, or it's just a blur after doing all these gigs with Jimmy? And I respect that, too, because you have such a deep amount of touring. This guy tours like nobody's business, and he plays some big houses. But you don't have any memory, really, of being at Aloha Stadium?
No, it was just a quick, opening up. You're not really there that long.
Right.
I mean, what I remember about, you're there maybe... you do 30 minutes at the most, and then you're out of there. I mean, you might watch them for a while, but then you're out of there. So, I don't remember that too well.
Totally understandable, my brother. I always just have to pick people's brain because you'd be surprised some gems that I come up with in this in this little interrogation here. An interesting date that was shared. This was a gig that happened on April 24th, 1982 that Steve told me about. Jimmy played the Waikiki Shell. Now, this was his first time there. Now, why I think you may remember this gig is because it was billed as an acoustic concert. It featured... Was
it the King Kong Trio, I bet? That's what we used to call that. It was an acoustic gig, is that right?
Yeah, right. And who was in the trio? Besides Jimmy, yourself, and then who would be the third?
It was probably Sam Clayton.
Okay.
Who is a percussionist for Little Feat, but who played with Jimmy for a long, long time. And I vaguely remember that one.
You know what made it special? You had a very special guest, according to this documentation here, that popped out on stage and did Margaritaville with you. I mean, a guy who actually has a connection to the state. Not a lot of people know that, but he has a place over on the Big Island, I believe. Neil Young jumped up on stage with you guys, supposedly.
Okay.
But
right.
That's cool because you've done so much, and that's why I just give you a high five. You got the kind of life you're like, yeah, I vaguely remember jamming with Neil Young.
Well, we've done it other times too, these things do run together.
It's a beautiful thing,
especially because we've been playing the Shell for quite a few years now.
And you must have, how many times have you jammed with Neil Young that you just can't even remember once, huh? Have you just been around him that many times? Is that
Well, yeah, I several times because, I remember when he was doing, I was working with Chris and Rita, and Chris was doing Jesus Was a Capricorn, and Neil was there doing at Quadraphonic Sound in Nashville. And Neil was recording, and that's where I met him the first time. And you know what? Another show that I really remember him on was the Johnny Cash show. He was on that show. I was with Tony Joe White. And the original Johnny Cash show, which was done at the Ryman Auditorium in Nashville.
Right. That TV show you're talking about.
Yeah, the Johnny Cash television show, yes. Yep. They eventually, then the second run they did out at Opryland, because they built a big theater out there that could house, with the Ryman, you had to bring in trucks like a live recording, to facilitate the, for the mixing board and all that.
Yeah, mobile trucks.
Mobile trucks. But then when they built Opryland, they built it so they could do television, so the second show, which I worked with Chris and Rita, the second Johnny Cash show was out at Opryland.
Man, I met Johnny one time. He was, nothing exotic like your life. Here, humble little me. I'm just like a little mouse next to Godzilla over here. But I did meet him one time, and he was a sweetie pie, and he took a picture with me. And what's your memory of stuff with Johnny?
Well, it brings back another gig. We played Dallas. It was during, it was probably early 70s. No, it was the early 70s because we had played the Billy Graham Crusade in Dallas, Texas.
Okay.
And we were back in he and June's hotel room. And Chris played, and Rita, And there was another guy, Larry Gatlin. He was a solo artist at the time. This is before the Gatlin brothers.
Sure.
They sang a song. We hadn't recorded it yet, or we had just recorded it. It was called "Why Me, Lord," and of course that was a big hit for Chris. And I just remember him sitting in the room. He was just a real gentle guy, you know. And June was the best. You know, she was terrific. We used to work out at their studio, and she'd always cook for us. You know, she'd be sure that we had something to eat. You know, they had a place out in Hendersonville, Tennessee. So it's been quite a trip. I must say.
Yeah, it is, cuz. Listen to you over there. June's home cooking, man.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
That's what I was telling somebody. I was like, having a conversation with this guy, it sort of writes itself. It's like, you don't have to think. When you're me and you're getting ready to talk to a guy like you, 2 pages just go, it's just like, it's really weird how stuff like that happens. Before I get off of him, I guess, Derek Malama, our morning show guy here, my good buddy, asked, how did you first meet Jimmy? I mean, you have this interesting history. You go from zoology to music. Right. How did you meet Jimmy?
Well, the way I met Jimmy is that I had decided to move to Memphis and pursue music. I was in pre-med, and after I graduated from the University of Arkansas, I moved to Memphis. Sammy Creason, who was the drummer I'd worked with for about 4 years during the summertime in this group called the Bill Black Combo, said, you should move, and why don't you try this? So I was there about 3 months, and Jerry Wexler, this rhythm section that Sammy was working with, which was Jim Dickinson on piano, Charlie Freeman on guitar, Tommy McClure on bass, and Sammy was the drummer, was working in a place called Sounds of Memphis. And Jerry wanted to bring that group down to Miami to be the house rhythm section. And they asked, well, we have this new keyboardist organ player. And I'd played on Tony Joe's Rainy Night in Georgia. So Jerry knew who I was. He said, sure, that'd be great. So the 5 of us became what was known as the Dixie Flyers, the house rhythm section for Atlantic Records. And one of the first projects we did was Jerry Jeff Walker. And at that time, this was 1970, Jimmy and Jerry Jeff were hanging out big time. You know, they were buddies. They were writing together and everything. And we played on Jerry Jeff's Being Free album, which was on Adco, that Tom Dowd produced. And Jimmy heard it. And so when Jimmy got his ABC Dunhill deal in 1973 or 72, we recorded in 73, he asked Sammy and I to play on that record. So that's where I met him.
How do you keep? I recently had the pleasure of having Elton John's Davy Johnstone and Nigel Olsson. They've worked with the guy for 40 years. What is it that you've had this longevity that goes back to what you just were describing? Is there anything about your chemistry with him or attending to his needs that makes you so indispensable?
I can't answer his point of view, but he's a very gracious guy, and he's a very loyal guy. He likes, he likes to be around people that he's been around, if he feels comfortable with them. And I feel real comfortable with him. And, we've been doing this 40 years. That's sort of unheard of in the music business, and or any business, to be around that long with somebody. I mean, I've been with him longer than I've been married, In fact, we've been together longer than he's been married. So
that's crazy talk. No, you really have this history. It's it's surreal like that. Does he? You must have had a huge love of animals to be going into zoology. Is that a bond that?
I was in pre-med, so I had to have a major, and I had a real interest in animals. Yeah, I mean, and it was fascinating. I mean, pre-med's basically, there's more chemistry. You don't have to major in anything to do with the body, with an animal, but you have to have 20 hours of chemistry. And it takes physics and all this other stuff. But I liked zoology, and it intrigued me.
But I mean, is that something that so you were less drawn to it by a love of animals and more by other stuff? Is that what you're saying?
No. I just had to have a major, and I took biology, and like everybody does, if you're in arts and sciences, your first semester. And I liked it, so I said, well, I got to declare a major, so I'll just do zoology.
And you kept it all the way through, which says a lot, right? You have a BS, you have a Bachelor's of Science in that?
Yes. No, actually, it's a Bachelor of Arts. It's only 30 hours,
Oh, okay.
30 hours of zoology.
Oh, interesting. That's I guess my question had been really, is that an area that you bonded at all with Jimmy? Does he love animals too? Is that somewhere that has ever been, because you always think of Jimmy in this tropical themed environment, you associate.
Actually, we've never even talked about it. He didn't even. I don't even know. I think just till recently did he know I majored in zoology. So
wow, 40 years and you guys never crossed the animal thing, huh?
So no, we never crossed. Once we were doing music, But anyway,
that's interesting. Well, that shows a lot. So when you don't hang out when you're on tour and talk about stuff. We talk more. He's a real idea guy, and he talks a lot about things that are coming up, and we talk about music and projects and things like that. And of course we talk about our families because I've known his children since they were born, and he's known mine since they were little. So But we do hang out on the road. But it's always, it's a funny place. It's a real sociable place. It's sort of like a locker room in a way, I mean, that's the way we treat it. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
No animal talk though, which is cool.
No animal talk. No.
Hey, Michael, you've got this resume, Aretha, as we mentioned, Almonds, including with Dwayne. We just take a little moment and bow in his direction. Jackson Browne, Roy Orbison, a whole different part of your life. But we're the local NPR member station. I do All Things Considered, the big national show. I do it locally here, and we're listener supported, member supported. I was wondering if, when you're in Honolulu, there's any chance we could record just a short follow-up interview, maybe before the show at the hotel. I'll come to you real easy with some mobile gear. Just boom, boom, it's done.
That I could see that. I just have to let you. I don't know my schedule yet. I'm still on the mainland. I came back, since I live in Los Angeles, I came back, and I'm flying out tomorrow to Maui.
Sure.
So, but I'd have to find out exactly what our departure time is from the hotel and all that.
Yeah, I mean, if it's not a hassle, and it'd be real easy. Like I said, I'd come there either at the sound check, before the gig, whatever, just bang out a quick interview. But it'd be real good for us. I'd appreciate it. As you can tell, I do know your history, and you got a lot of other stories I'd love to share with the listeners, if you don't mind.
Okay, sure.
I'll text you in the morning, first thing.
That's great, Dave.
And I appreciate it. It was awesome talking to you, and I'd love to pick your brain. I know you got some great stories. I hope you didn't mind this. Was this an okay interview? Did this meet your high standards?
Oh, no. It was great. I really enjoyed it.
Okay.
All right.
Be safe, brother. Travel safely.
Okay. And I'll talk to you Sunday.
I'll see you then. Aloha.
All right. Bye. Aloha. This is Michael Utley from Jimmy Buffett's Coral Reefer Band. And when I heard my good friend Dave Lawrence had an opening, I began practicing my lines right away because I have waited a very, very long time to say these magic words. Hey, Brother Dave, have a happy, healthy 420.